Hi everybody and welcome to today's International SEO video series where we're going to be talking about Latin America. Today we're joined by Maria, who is going to talk to us about her key markets.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited and a bit nervous about this interview, but yeah, I've got lots to talk about. Everything international SEO and specifically Latin America and how to go about doing SEO there. So I've compiled a few slides with information. I'm going to go from general to more specific because I understand that not everyone is aware of what doing business in Latin America entails, what Latin America is, what's Latin American Spanish, South America versus Latin America, etc., etc. So I wanted to start by defining what Latin America is, and it's a portion of the Americas that's from Mexico, you can see the image on my slides there, from that point all the way down, and it's the region where Romance languages are predominantly spoken. So everywhere where you get Spanish, Portuguese, and French, and it's the term Latin America is the sum of South America, Central America, Mexico, and the islands of the Caribbean. Many people confuse Latin America with South America, and it's not the same thing. So South America, you can see here both images side to side, is just the southern portion of Latin America. So that triangular shaped orange bit at the bottom. And it's bounded by the Caribbean Sea to the northwest and north, and the Atlantic Ocean to the northeast, east, and southeast, and the Pacific Ocean to the west. So that's an important difference to establish before we begin. And then here are some facts about Latin America as a whole. It's 20 countries in Latin America. It says 4 regions here, and it mentions North America. That's 4 regions in the Americas as a whole. Yeah, so in the Americas as a whole, you've got North America, Central America, the Caribbean, and South America. And from Central America downwards, that's what we call Latin America. There's 646 million inhabitants, out of which 400 million are internet users. So that's very important data to have, because we're talking about SEO today and digital efforts, digital marketing, etc. The predominant languages are Spanish and Portuguese, but there are dozens of languages spoken in Latin America. Minority languages, you've got French as well, but it's dozens of them. So it's important not to make like a generalization that it's a homogeneous territory, because it isn't, neither in terms of culture nor in terms of language, consumer behavior, etc. The main market, or the main 2 markets in Latin America, the main 2 economies are Brazil and Mexico. Mexico is the home to the world's largest Spanish-speaking population. It's at 128 million at the moment. That's a lot more than Spain, which is, I think, 53 nowadays. So we've got 128 million in Mexico, and 98 million of which are internet users. And then in Latin America, you've got Colombia and Argentina as the second and third biggest Spanish-speaking countries. If you consider the US, because in the US you do have Spanish-speaking population, you've got the Hispanic community in the US, which has Latin roots. The US has more Spanish speakers than Spain itself, if you count non-native speakers. So there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people to target in Latin America. And the trick is knowing how to go about it. And in terms of language alone, there are dozens of varieties and dialects. So dialect and variety are synonyms. The only thing is that linguists prefer not to use dialect sometimes because it's got some negative connotations, like it's substandard sort of. So we talk about varieties more in linguistics, but in everyday language, variety and dialect is the same. What's not the same is accent. So accent concerns pronunciation alone. So you can have one dialect spoken with several accents, and that's, I'm getting too technical, but I'm a nerd, so these are the main Latin American Spanish varieties, the main groups, because within each of these groups you've got a lot more. So you've got Mexican Spanish, Central American Spanish, Caribbean Spanish, Amazonian Spanish, Andean Spanish, and the Southern Cone Spanish. But look at the diversity here. So you can see the groups that I've mentioned there, but look at how many subgroups within those groups you've got. And I added this map just as a visual aid because each color there is a variety. And I dare say that within each of these colors, there is a lot of variation as well. There certainly is in Argentina. So I'm native from Argentina, which is at the bottom there, that long country at the bottom. And I have a different accent and different vocabulary from people living 100 kilometers from me within the same province. And then, then there's this thing about Latin American Spanish, right? You work with international clients, and we've worked together, and they sometimes say, right, can we localize this into Latin American Spanish? And you show them this map, and you're like, okay, what do you mean? And most of them mean Mexican Spanish. And I would like to make it clear that Latin American Spanish is not the same as Mexican Spanish, as we've established. Now, why is it that usually in business they are taken as synonyms? And why is it that we understand clients asking for Latin American Spanish as meaning Mexican Spanish or something similar to it? Because of the size of the Mexican market. So what linguists tend to do when localizing into Latin American Spanish is making linguistic choices that are closer to Mexican Spanish than to any other of the regional varieties that we've just seen. And the aim is to maximize the number of potential readers. When you consider that Mexico has 128 million inhabitants, then you want to stay as close to them as possible, always trying to make certain linguistic choices that mean that there are not too many colloquialisms or regionalisms or localisms that would make it impossible for readers in other countries to understand what you're meaning. The thing is, well, this is what I just said. It's got Mexico's got the largest population and also the highest number of internet users, and it's the second most powerful country in the region after Brazil. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's focused to join Brazil in the world's top 10 economies by 2030. So that's a big thing. These are some stats about internet users in Latin America, and you can see that Brazil's at the top there, and then Mexico's there. It says 89, but 2 years later, 2022, we're talking about 98 million. So it's going up really fast as well. And you've got Argentina, Colombia. And Mexican Spanish has the additional benefit that many people in other countries can understand Mexican Spanish without any major difficulty because of cultural experts. So you get movies and music and TV shows, and you access them and consume them throughout Latin America, and they come from Mexico. So you're used to hearing it. I'm gonna jump a bit further, but I need to say this: understanding something doesn't mean that that text is going to be appealing. So understanding is not the same as feeling addressed, and that's something really important when it comes to marketing efforts. Do you want your audience to just understand what you're saying, or to feel like you're talking directly to them at the personal level and connecting with them from an emotional point of view, which marketing is supposed to do? So it depends on your objectives. If you're just trying to create a text that will be understood in as many Latin American countries as possible, then yeah, we can talk about Latin American Spanish and make some neutral, between inverted commas, choices that will help you get there. But if your aim is engaging an audience, appealing to them, converting them, delighting them over time, then we need to go a bit deep. We need to go a bit deeper and take into account local nuances, and that's what I'm going to talk about next when I deal with international Spanish, which is something that we hear a lot in business and in the localization industry. International Spanish, also called neutral Spanish. Sometimes we get clients at Crisol that come to us and say, right, we want to start penetrating Spanish-speaking markets, And we're like, right, okay, what variety of Spanish would you like to start with? Oh, no, let's go for something neutral, something international. And that can be tricky because, like I said, you're having to constantly avoid regional variation, localism, colloquialisms, and locally preferred grammatical structures, like I mentioned before, so that the text won't sound confusing or unnatural or foreign to any of the people in that region. But that's really tricky because you can end up with a text that has no flavor, right? So it's very, very robotic, very stale, and will not achieve the desired effect. We're talking about marketing here. We're talking about getting people to trust you, to buy from you, to convert, to come back. So we do, I mean, we can't say that international Spanish doesn't exist, which is something that you will hear a lot of linguists and marketers say. It doesn't exist. It does exist as a concept, because if a client comes to me and says, I want international Spanish, I know what they mean. So it does exist as a concept. Now, is it effective? That's a different story. There are certain use cases where it is effective, and certain others where it's definitely discouraged. And this is what I was saying earlier. Understanding isn't the same as feeling addressed. And this is where international or neutral Spanish often fails. I found this quote online. Can't remember. I rephrased it. I reworked it. By trying to be all things to all people, it can end up sounding like nothing to anyone. That's why it's only a good choice in a handful of cases. Which cases? When you aim to reach the widest possible audience with a message that's not culturally specific, for example, an awareness campaign about a global problem, such as climate change, fair enough. You're trying to raise awareness, but see how the objective is and the aim is different from marketing or SEO. You know, it's it's access to information rather than communicating a message in an attempt to convert. It's not the same thing. When you produce content that's highly technical in nature and doesn't require deep understanding of local culture and context, you've got some fields where terminology is more or less universal within all the Spanish varieties, and then you will aim for international Spanish and everyone will understand what you're meaning. But it's for example, scientific text, academic paper. You can do that. Again, not the same as marketing, not the same as SEO. And then when you need to communicate with Spanish speakers from multiple countries on a topic that's not country specific, for example, a multi-regional conference to discuss new developments in the automotive industry. This is a very random example. Again, not the same as marketing or SEO. If your goal is to optimize your content, your website content, to rank high in search engines in Latin America, neutral Spanish is going to backfire. You can. I mean, it's a good stepping. Good first step. You can, begin your presence in a new territory to try and test the waters. Maybe, then you can go with international Spanish first, or pick one variety of Spanish first and then expand from there. But it shouldn't be a long-term strategy at all. And these are the reasons why you should avoid it for SEO. There's lack of local relevance, and SEO is all about relevance. It's all about the local factor in SEO is very important. It has been gaining importance over the last few years, and that's not going to stop anytime soon. So if you want your content to rank well in search engines in Latin America, it's important to make sure that it's relevant for your target audience, and not too broad. You need your users to be able to relate, basically. Low rankings. You need to optimize for the right keywords. And you and I both talk about this all the time. Different people in different countries from different cultures search for things differently because culture informs search behavior. So to target the right keywords, you need to go local. You need to understand that specific culture, the context, the circumstances, and pick the keywords that are going to rank best for each locale. That's why research has to be done at the country level. poor click-through rates. You can be targeting the right keywords or good enough keywords, but if your content isn't compelling enough to make users want to click on it, then your performance is not going to be great. And for it to be compelling, it needs to create some sort of emotional connection with your target audience. You need to connect with them on a personal level, on a deeper level, and that includes touching on their culture and their context and their preferences as a local group. Limited engagement, same thing. Your content needs to resonate with users. You want them to be sharing your content across social media, for example. If it's not relevant to them and to their local context, they're not likely to stick around for long. And your SEO efforts, you can have best website, the best the highest loading, the fastest loading website, the best user experience, but if your content doesn't resonate, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot, basically. And then missed opportunities by not catering to local preferences and customs is what I was saying, this missing out on this opportunity to connect with the target audience. We are in the era of the customer personalization. The individual relationship is key. Users, customers demand that brands meet them where they are. I used to work as a lead editor for a major sportswear brand, and I was editing for the whole of Latin America. And the term differences between Chile, Argentina, and Mexico, they were targeting just a few countries within Latin America, not all of them. And that's the other thing. You don't need to target all 20 countries. You can do your market research and find out what countries, what regions make the most business sense, and start there. You don't need to go all ambitious. And anyway, the terms for footwear and other, it was crazy. We had a massive glossary, and it was very hard to remember everything. But yeah, it's the diversity is absolutely mind blowing. So this is what I suggest and what we used to do for this sportswear brand, and it's trans adaptation. We wrote a blog post about this, and in this blog post I explained that as is the case with many other terms in the language industry, you will find several definitions for the same term depending on who you're talking to. So trans adaptation, this is what we've meant by it throughout the years, and our clients have meant by it throughout the years. It's adapting content within the same language between two markets, two locales. For example, you would have a website in English translated into Mexican Spanish, and then you would hire another team of Spanish linguists to do trans adaptation from Mexican Spanish to Argentinian Spanish. So they would work with the Mexican Spanish as a source, and they would just adapt everything to make it sound local to Argentina or to whatever other country we're talking about. And it's a form of budget-friendly localization, is what we say it is, because rather than having several different teams doing English into Argentinian Spanish, English into Mexican Spanish, English into Colombian Spanish, you just do it once and then you trans-adapt, and it's a lot cheaper because it's adaptation work rather than translation or localization from scratch. It takes less time and it works out cheaper. And I've got this graph at the bottom of the linguistic services in order of closeness to the source text, and you've got direct translation on one end, and then you've got blind transcreation, which is even further from the source text than transcreation is, and it's closer to copywriting. And right there between direct translation and localization, which sits at the middle, you have trans adaptation, because you're not fully localizing from scratch, but you are adapting, and the end product is very similar. And then I've got a few tips for SEO strategies in Latin America if any businesses would like to start doing SEO in the region, this is some things that they should probably take into consideration. And the first one, we've said it already, is don't downplay the influence of culture and context on search behavior. For example, some countries in Latin America have very tight economic conditions. There's economic crisis all the time, and lots of poverty. So that makes consumers price sensitive. So they are likely in some areas, right? In the areas where the economic conditions are tighter. So they will be looking for ways to save money, and that's going to impact the keywords that they use and the type of content that they are looking for. They're less likely to be searching for luxury items, for example, and they will be looking for best value, something cheap, something free, something. So that's something to consider. Then in many other Latin American countries, there's lack of trust in local providers of financial services. So if your business offers financial services and you want to get an edge over local competitors, try and have this in mind, because you will need some keywords and some terms in your related to security, reputation, international. Those are more likely to convert the users in those regions. Attitudes towards luxury are different as well. For example, in Central America, a certain amount of bling is a sign of success. It's a social sign of doing well, being successful. But flaunting wealth is seen as vulgar. So in other parts of South America. So terms related to luxury and discounts and bargains are going to be used differently depending on the culture. And if you have luxury items that you're selling, you may need to word your marketing message differently, and the keywords you're using as well. Then I was saying in Mexico, for example, culturally, consumers make very rational decisions. So they tend to look for qualified advice. You want to use keywords that will reflect this, because they will be using them to search for the things that you're selling. And you want your message to include things like value-driven or value-driven propositions, and any messaging that highlights the quality and the anything that will support the purchase decision from a rational point of view. And then, well, the Hofstede dimensions are something that we use a lot in marketing to determine cultural traits for different societies and cultures. He's got 5 dimensions, and 2 of them are masculinity and indulgence. So masculinity has got to do with how tough or tender a society is, and indulgence is whether they, well, sorry, it sounds a bit repetitive, but how much they like to indulge. And there are 3 clear groups in Latin America. You've got exhibitionists, you've got small groups, and you've got there's a typo on the slides there, it's the restrainers. The 20 Latin American countries fall into one of these 3 groups, and this has an impact on how they search and how they consume content, because SEO as well has this aspect of creating content, creating local content that's relevant for that audience in particular, that you will not necessarily be localizing for other markets. You may have blogs on different topics depending on each market, and that will be informed by their interests and preferences and things like this, like are they exhibitionists, small groups, or restrainers? Exhibitionists, like Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, and Venezuela, they're highly masculine and indulgent in Hofstede's dimensions, and that makes them more experimental. They're open to innovative experiences and anything that's got to do with the senses. So in these markets, any initiatives that involve something new and a new experience, and all of that will likely work very well. For example, augmented reality, virtual or augmented reality. So keywords related to new, trending, innovative, they tend to be popular, and these users tend to use them when searching for things, and they like to consume content around those things. Then you've got the small groups like Brazil. Brazil is similarly indulgent as the countries that I've mentioned before, but it's a bit more feminine. This makes it a more subdued culture, and experiential tendencies are more powerful, more popular in smaller groups. Um, so they like clubs and private societies and more exclusive, smaller gatherings. So your content and your keywords should revolve around the sense of community and sharing and private and exclusive and all of that. And then you've got the restrainers like Peru and Uruguay. These are more feminine and more restrained than their neighbors, and they require a greater push from brands before they take action. Um, this also means that they will be doing a lot more commercial investigation as well before deciding to go on and convert and purchase the product or the service. So when you're using your keywords, you will benefit from using keywords with a commercial investigation search intent, um, and reiterate, the message several times across all your platforms and across all your content until they've been exposed to your brand and your product or services enough times that they are ready to take action. My second tip is leveraging social media. In Latin America, we love social media. We are on social media all the time. And that's a very powerful tool in SEO efforts. It may not directly contribute SEO rankings, but it's important that brands see social media as something more than merely a consumer service portal. The social media generates social signs that indicate content quality and engagement, and you want that for your content. And actually, while social media shares and likes and posts and comments might not be a ranking factor, Google does take it into account. This is what Google's webmaster trend analyst said. The context in which you engage online and how people talk about you online actually can impact what you rank for. So making sure that you've got a local presence across all social media platforms for each of the markets that you're targeting can benefit your SEO massively. And the third tip is remembering that SEO goes hand in hand with user experience. If your user experience is spot on, that's 50% of your SEO done. And something that I've noticed, because I've lived in London for several years, since 2014, and I've been back in Argentina for a few months now. I'm staying here for a year, and I can see a big contrast in the way that brands engage with consumers in Europe versus here. WhatsApp here in Argentina, at least, and I know this is the case as well in other Latin American countries, is huge, to the point that if you want to get in touch with a brand, if you want to book a dinner at a restaurant or order clothes or have your car washed, whatever you want, every business has a business WhatsApp number, and they send you everything. They contact you directly there. They sell through WhatsApp. They do customer service through WhatsApp. So every brand that doesn't have a WhatsApp presence is missing out because consumers are expecting that. I found it a bit odd when I first got here. Now it's a must for me. If I'm interested in a brand and I'm considering purchasing from them, I want to have them on my contact lists in my phone to be able to WhatsApp them, and that's a cultural expectation. So brands coming from abroad need to be able to tailor their user experience and their customer experience to what's locally expected. And if you do that, then SEO coupled with that is going to take you to heaven. But otherwise, it's not going to work. I mean, you can have the best website, and then if your user experience is subpar, then yeah, you're wasting money and effort. Oh, that's it. So, well, I reached the end pretty quickly. Well, thank you. If anyone has any other questions, they can find me on social media. I'm always there. Instagram, LinkedIn, you can reach out to me directly. I'm always happy to chat about all things SEO and international marketing.
Thank you so much.